Most travelers chase the same famous landmarks: the Liberty Bell, Gettysburg, Mount Vernon. And sure, those places deserve the attention. But some of America's most important stories are hiding in places people pass without even realizing what happened there. Places where invasions were stopped. Places where freedom took a major step forward. Places where railroads changed a nation. And places where entire chapters of American history still feel almost untouched. So today we're counting down 5 hidden American history sites. Most tourists drive right past, and trust me, by the end of this list, you may be rethinking your next road trip. Let's start with a place that helped open the American frontier. Number 5. Cumberland Gap National Historical Park. If you've ever driven through the Appalachian region without stopping, there's a good chance you passed one of the most important gateways in early American history. Cumberland Gap doesn't just look dramatic. It changed the direction of the country. Long before highways and interstates, this mountain pass was a natural route through the Appalachians. First used by native peoples and wildlife, it later became the path taken by long hunters, settlers, and pioneers pushing westward. That means this wasn't just a trail, it was a turning point. When people picture westward expansion, they usually think of wagon trains, crossing open plains, but before all that, many of them came through here, through this narrow break in the mountains. And today it still feels surprisingly wild. You can stand in a place that once shaped migration, expansion, and the future map of the United States. And most tourists barely know it's there. What makes Cumberland Gap so fascinating is that it gives you both big historical meaning and incredible scenery, mountain overlooks, forest roads, old paths, and the feeling that you're standing at a literal doorway into another era. So if a place opened the road west, what's next? A place where one single day changed the course of the Civil War. Number 4, Antietam National Battlefield. A lot of people know Gettysburg, far fewer stop at Antietam. And that's surprising because Antietam was the site of the bloodiest single day in American history. In just one day, thousands of soldiers were killed, wounded, or went missing. Even more importantly, the battle ended Robert E. Lee's first invasion of the North and gave Abraham Lincoln the opening he needed to issue the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. Think about that for a second. This wasn't just another battlefield, this was one of those rare places where the outcome affected not only the war, but the meaning of the war. Without Antietam, the path toward emancipation may have looked very different. And yet, compared to some of America's more famous Civil War destinations, many travelers pass it by. That's what makes Antietam so haunting. It isn't loud, it isn't flashy, it's quiet. But once you know what happened there, at places like Bloody Lane, Burnside Bridge, and the cornfield, that silence starts to feel incredibly heavy. It's one of those places where peaceful fields today stand, in sharp contrast to the violence that once unfolded there. And that contrast is exactly what makes it unforgettable. But if Antietam helped reshape the Civil War, the next place helped ignite a deeper national reckoning over slavery before the war even began. Number 3, Harpers Ferry National Historical Park. Some towns are scenic, some towns are historic. Harpers Ferry is both, and that combination makes it unforgettable. Sitting at the meeting point of the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers, Harpers Ferry looks almost too beautiful to be tied to so much conflict. But this small town was the site of John Brown's 1859 raid, one of the most explosive pre-Civil War events in the country. That's what makes Harpers Ferry so compelling. It's not just one story. It's several major American stories layered on top of each other. You've got abolition, you've got the Civil War, you've got Reconstruction, and you've got the continuing fight for education and civil rights. A lot of travelers stop because it's pretty. But the history here is far bigger than the postcard view. This is one of those places where you can walk a charming historic street and then realize you're standing in a location tied to some of the most intense moral and political conflict in American history. The scenery pulls you in. The history stays with you. And now we move from a place of conflict and transformation to one of America's oldest and strangest historical mysteries. Number 2, Fort Raleigh National Historic Site. If I asked you where one of the biggest mysteries in early American history took place, most people probably couldn't tell you, but it happened. At Fort Raleigh on North Carolina's Roanoke Island. This site preserves the location associated with England's first attempted colony in North America, and with the legend of the Lost Colony, one of the most famous unsolved stories from the colonial era. That alone would be enough to make this place interesting. But what makes Fort Raleigh so powerful is the atmosphere. This isn't history with obvious answers. This is history with disappearance, uncertainty, and questions we still argue about centuries later. What happened to the settlers? Why was the colony abandoned? What do we really know, and what has become legend? That mystery gives this place an entirely different energy from battlefields and monuments. Instead of "this happened here," Fort Raleigh gives you "something happened here, and we still don't fully know what." And that uncertainty is exactly what makes it so memorable. But our number 1 spot is hidden in plain sight for a different reason. It tells the story of an American force that changed everything, not through war but through movement. Number 1. Steamtown National Historic Site. When people think of game-changing moments in American history, they usually picture presidents, wars, or revolutions. But one of the biggest forces that transformed the United States was the railroad. And that's why Steamtown National Historic Site deserves far more attention than it gets. Located in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Steamtown preserves the machinery, labor, and lived experience of the steam railroad era. This is history you don't just look at, it's history you can almost feel. Railroads didn't just move people, they moved industry, they moved goods, they moved communication, they shrank distances and accelerated the rise of modern America. And yet, because it's not one of the flashy must-see historic icons, so many people overlook it. That's a mistake. Because if you want to understand how America expanded, industrialized, and connected itself, railroads are a huge part of that story. And Steamtown brings that story to life in a way textbooks never can. Steam, steel, motion, sound, machinery. It's the perfect reminder that some of the most powerful moments in history didn't happen in one dramatic speech or one famous battle. Sometimes they happened because a nation learned how to move faster, farther, and more efficiently than ever before. And that's what makes Steamtown such a strong number 1. It doesn't just preserve history, it makes you feel the energy that helped build modern America. So those are 5 hidden American history sites most tourists drive right past: Cumberland Gap, Antietam, Harpers, Ferry, Fort Raleigh, and Steamtown. None of them are as overexposed as the biggest name landmarks, but every one of them tells a story that helped shape the United States. And honestly, that's what makes places like these so special. They don't just show you history, they make you feel like you found it for yourself. So here's the question: which of these places would you actually visit first? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more videos on overlooked American history, forgotten landmarks, and places where the past still feels alive, make sure to subscribe. Because sometimes the most important places in America are the ones people drive right past.